Today I'm going to be sharing 3 altcoins that I believe can outperform the market during the month of April. Now I know this video comes a week late as we're already 9 days into the month of April. However, I do believe that the timing of this video could work out to be pretty good with a big narrative about to really kick on. So we'll discuss more about that in the video, and we'll also go through last month's picks, 3 altcoins for March, and discuss the recent performance of them. If you do enjoy the video, please do drop a like, subscribe to the channel, but let's get started by taking a look at them picks from March. And number 1 was Multibit or Mubi. Now this was a BRC20 play because we were looking at how the halving at the time of that video was around 50 days away. Now at this point, I do still think it's a very relevant play as the halving edges even closer, but it isn't going to be a pick for today. That would be too repetitive, but I do think it's worth keeping that in mind. Now the gains in the month of March, it peaked at around 53%, so not a bad return for those who jumped in, and it's currently sat at around 18%, but I do think there is another move in it. Now we're not going to go into detail on this one today, but like I said, something to keep in mind. And second on that list for March was Bank, which we made very clear was a high risk, high reward play because it is a low market cap coin. However, it did pay off massively during March because we've seen gains of around 420% at its peak and is currently sat at around 50%. Now, of course, that volatility is to be expected with low market cap coins, but it is without doubt the best return in this series on the YouTube channel so far. And the last pick for March was Ethereum. So we've definitely balanced out the higher risk coins with some lower risk coins because everybody knows Ethereum is not a 100x gem anymore. So we've seen a gain of around 30% at its peak from the time of recording, and we have currently seen price settle at around a 15% gain. So still in the green, but not that big return like Bank. So now we move on to the picks for April, and number 1 in no particular order is Zeus Network. Now I really like this play because it taps into 2 huge narratives at the moment. The first one is the Solana ecosystem, which of course is gaining a lot of traction recently. And number 2 is the BRC20 narrative, like we said, with the halving fast approaching. Now there are a number of different factors which makes me bullish here because Zeus is the only project out there that is currently bridging that gap between Solana and Bitcoin, and it seems like Ansem also believes that this could be a good play, which of course is great confluence for any trader or investor to see on Twitter. Also, you've got to bear in mind that it is listed on OKX and backed by OKX Ventures, which of course is one of the biggest tier 1 exchanges out there, and it's great to see such a big name, a big exchange in the space backing this one publicly. So now we're going to take a look at the chart on the 1 hour time frame because it only launched last week and we don't have a great deal of data to work with, but there is a 4-step guide here that I talk about a number of times on Twitter, on YouTube. I won't go into detail now, but you'll want to keep this in mind towards the end of the video, and I will leave a link in the description, which is more of an educational guide on Twitter that I shared about this 4-step play. So you see the initial sell-off on launch, you go to a range, you see the curve, and then it finally pumps. But that isn't relevant to us right now if we're looking for an entry. Now, like I say, I am very bullish on this project because of the narratives that it ticks. It's ticking boxes. I've marked out 3 key levels that I'm paying attention to at the moment. You've got these range lows here at around 88 cents. If we are to tap that, I do think that we would need help from the market and Bitcoin. We need a dump across the board to jump back into this level, but it would be a super aggressive entry because you are catching knives, but I do think that would be such a gift at this point. You've got the mid-range here closer to around $1. We have wicked into that recently, so whether we tap that again is yet to be seen, but I do think it's a level to pay attention to. But if you want to play it super conservatively, which I think most people would prefer, is to wait for a flip of the recent high, well, the all-time highs here at around 115, 113, that kind of area. I think with this, you're not catching knives, it's a bit safe. You're playing trend continuation. Of course, you're not getting the cheapest price possible, but you are getting a bit more safety with that confluence that the trend continuation is ready to kick on and make that next leg. But regardless of your entry, you know, if you want to play it on technicals, if you want to just dollar cost average, I do think that over the month of April, we are going to see a decent return from this one with it ticking those narratives. And before we continue to the next pick, I just want to make it very clear that I am an investor in the projects that we are discussing today. I do think it's important to have skin in the game, and if I'm going to talk about these projects as good picks, it only makes sense for me to hold them or buy them myself. So I want to make that extremely clear. The other thing I want to mention at this point is to drop a like if you enjoyed the video. This is very important for me to gain an understanding of what content you guys like to see. So next on the list for April is a coin we've talked about many times recently on the channel, and it is Fetch AI. Now this is all around the merger and short-term price action, because we've recently seen that the Fetch community, the governance proposal was passed with a 99.8% vote in favour of this merger going ahead. Now AGIX and Ocean proposals have not been finalised yet, but it's looking very likely that they will also pass with an over 99% rate, which is very impressive because it looks like everybody is pretty clear that they want this merger to go ahead. Now, in terms of what this does for an opportunity in April, I do think that when this does finally get confirmed, there will be some volatility on the charts and it could present a big opportunity for a trade. So we're going to take a look at the FET chart on the 12-hour time frame. Of course, we've seen an explosive move in the earlier stages of this year, running from as low as 50 cents up to around 345, 350, and now price is starting to go sideways. And I can imagine that the waiting time, the patience that people have now waiting for news on this merger is playing its part here. So people are pretty silent, but I do think that there are a couple of levels to pay attention to. So we've got the range lows here at around 235. If we tap into this level, I definitely think it's worth a punt because the invalidation level is so clear. If we lose this level, then the trade is off. And of course, with the volatility that the merger may present, you know, we have to make sure that we do have stops in place and the invalidation levels are there. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when it comes to more aggressive entries. However, it could be that you want to wait for a flip of the range highs. We've seen some deviation here. This was when the merger news first broke out, so I wouldn't rely on that price action too much. I'd be looking here at around $3.13 for that kind of flip. But if you do want to be, again, super conservative, you can wait for the flip of them highs at around 350. So you've got an opportunity there and there. It may be that you're scaling on both. It's entirely up to you. But the thing is with the retests, they may not necessarily come. If the news breaks out that the merger is going ahead, I do think with the general positive sentiment around this, it could just cause one big green dildo all the way up to new highs, and that will not present you with an opportunity to buy in on the retest. And that's why I do think that as well as looking at these key levels, as well as looking to buy at these range lows, if we get that opportunity, it may be that just buying a bag off the market, maybe dollar cost averaging in, building up a smaller position ahead of that news could be a good play. And last but not least on this list for April is BFi Labs. Now again, this is a project that launched recently and it does tick the narrative of BRC20. In fact, it allows you to trade BRC20 and ordinals with absolutely no fees on your wallet of choice. So fundamentally, that is what the project is all about. But again, with the Bitcoin halving only 10 days away at this point, I do think there is huge opportunity for upside. So when it comes to looking to the chart, we recently discussed with Zeus that 4-step play, and we should keep it in mind. And this is exactly why, because BFi being another project that recently launched, is seeing a very similar pattern as we do time and time again with new shiny coins. So first we have the initial sell-off. This is when price is volatile, when early investors want to dump their bags, which is absolutely fine because it gives us an opportunity to buy more. We then form that range at lower prices as discussed. It's not the cleanest range. We've seen a couple of fake outs, but I guess no two charts are going to be the exact same. We started to see that curve form as price started to creep back towards them range highs, and that's where we're hovering now, around the range highs at around 33 cents. We've seen a small fake out, we've seen some wicks, and I do think this type of price action here is exactly what is needed for a solid but conservative entry, because if we do see a little bit of price action again above 33 but below 35, it's a bit tricky because we've seen fake outs in that area before here. So I do think that if we get the clear break of 35, we flip that into support, this gives a great entry to then make that pump, because we've seen it with Zeus, and like I said in the description there'll be a link to previous examples where once we see that breakout, price really does get going. And with the BRC20 narrative that we've discussed in this video time and time again, that just gives it extra legs to see this play out. So that is all for today's video, my 3 picks for the remaining weeks of April. Now I do think, of course, that you can see there is a clear hype around BRC20 going into the halving in 10 days, and that's not something I'm looking to fade. I do think these picks can outperform the rest of the market. If you did enjoy the video, please do drop a like, subscribe to the channel, comment and let me know which coins you're paying attention to this month. But in the meantime, please do trade safe, invest safe, and I'll catch you in the next one.